Swashbucklers, you're listening to Under the Crossbones, episode number 92. My name is Phil Johnson. I'm your host for the show. Thank you once again for tuning in and telling your friends and all that kind of good stuff. And if you're new to the show, welcome to the show. This is going to be one of those episodes where we have a lot of new people listening. So welcome to the Under the Crossbones crew. Fun fact about the number 92 for episode number 92. There is a hill in New Zealand that holds the Guinness World Record for having the longest place name. It's got 92 letters. I'm not going to pronounce it. Are you kidding me? No. I'll put it in the show notes, though, so that you can see what it is. It's crazy, weird, long, unpronounceable. There is a pronunciation, but I'm not even going to try it. They call it taumata for sharp. Taumauto, whatever. Taumata for short. And the name translates in the native language there. It translates to the summit where Tamatea, the man with the big knees, the slider, climber of mountains, the land swallower who traveled about, played his nose flute for his loved one. That is somehow bizarre and sweet and romantic at the same time. The man with the big knees. That's very odd. So anyway, Taumata, and all the rest of the letters, 92 letters in the name of that hill in New Zealand. I'll put the full name in the show notes so that you can see it and you can try to pronounce it, because I'm not gonna. And of course, the show notes will be at underthecrossbones.com/092. All right, on to big business today. Big guest. I've been waiting to put this one out. I've been super excited. You're really going to enjoy it. Of course, Pirates of the Caribbean 5 is out. Dead Men Tell No Tales. And my guest on the show today is Geoff Zanelli. And Geoff is the score composer for the film. He has also written music for the previous 4 films. He's been working with Hans Zimmer since way back on Pirates of the Caribbean 1. He was credited as additional music on the first 4 films, and we'll talk about what that means and why it's actually way more than what it sounds like. And this score, he wrote the whole thing. And so it's very exciting. So we talk about what it's like to dive into his first full score for a franchise film like this. We talk about how he got hooked up with Hans Zimmer in the first place, where he comes from, how he got into scoring, all great stuff. This is such a fun interview. And I'll tell you, when I go back and edit the interviews, I can always tell when it's going to be a good one, because I enjoy listening to it again. I was there the first time, obviously, but I really enjoyed listening back to this interview. And I think you're going to as well. You're going to have a great time with this. You can find Geoff at geoffzanelli.com, and you can find him at Geoff Zanelli on Twitter. And Geoff is Geoff. He's got that crazy spelling of Geoff on there. And Zanelli, spelled like it sounds, Zanelli. So that's geoffzanelli.com and at Geoff Zanelli. It's funny because you'll start to, we're going to talk about a couple other things before we get to the interview, but you'll hear that about 30 minutes into the interview, I start to wrap it up because his PR rep told me he's got 30 minutes to do this, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll have him out in 30 minutes. So we start to hit the 30-minute mark in our talk, and I said, I start to like wrap it up. You'll hear me start to like wrap it up, and he goes, no, what else do you want to talk about? And we end up talking for like another 15 minutes. So if you hear me start to wrap it up in the interview, just keep on going. There's lots more after that you haven't heard yet. It's really, really fun. Now, like I said, this is the type of episode that there's probably a bunch of new people coming in who maybe have heard the show before. And so if you want to dig in more, this is episode 92, lots of episodes. So I thought I would recommend a couple that you might go check out, okay? So if you want to hear about more Pirates of the Caribbean stuff specifically, go check out episode 25, where my guest is Jim Burkett, and Jim was the storyboard artist and the location scout for the first Pirates of the Caribbean film, and I think maybe the second one too. Episode number 31 is Jason Sorrell, who is a former Disney Imagineer, and he is an expert on all things Pirates of the Caribbean, from the rides to the films to just like everything Pirates of the Caribbean. And episode 74 is Lee Ehrenberg, who played Pintel in the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean films, and Pintel was my favorite character of the whole series of movies. So those are 3. That's episode 25, 31, and 74. I will link those in the show notes so that you can go right to them from there. Okay, so you can just go to the show notes in your podcast app right there if you're listening on Apple Podcast or whatever on your iPhone, and just click the thing and the show notes will be right there. If you want to get outside the Pirates of the Caribbean world a little bit, here's 3 episodes you might check out. Episode 7 is Don Mates. And Don is a painter, and he was the creator of the Captain Morgan rum character. So we dig deep into that and painting about pirates and things like that. Really fun, great interview. Episode 27 and 28 is a two-parter with John Chatterton. And John is a wreck diver and one of the few people to ever actually find a legit sunken pirate ship. And it's very cool. There's a whole book about him and his partners called Pirate Hunters that you should check out. So that's episode 27, 28. Episode 55 is Ye Banished Privateers, which is my favorite pirate band. Those dudes are great, and we had a great killer group conversation with the whole band from halfway around the world. So I will link those also in the show notes. Those are great episodes to get started with if you're new to the show. And if you've heard all those already, you're not new to the show. Thanks for hanging in there with us. It's we got more great stuff coming up for sure. Let's see. I will be on the road coming up again. I'm always on the road, it seems like. By the way, vacation last week, Disneyland, Universal, great. Nearly got sick on Harry Potter, but managed to squeak it through. Man, it's a good ride at Harry Potter Land there, but nauseating. Disneyland, super crowded, but we managed to get on everything. Anyway, it was a great trip. Pechanga, the gigs at Pechanga Casino were fantastic. Thank you guys for coming out for that. Here's what I've got coming up as far as tour dates in June. June 2nd to 3rd, that is coming up real quick here. I'll be headlining the Hey Guys Comedy Club in Fairview Heights, Illinois for 3 shows there. Thursday, June 8th, I'll be at Hop Dogma Brewing in El Granada, California. Wednesday, June 14th, I will be at the Mill Casino in Coos Bay, Oregon. Friday and Saturday, June 16th and 17th, I'll be at Chadwick's in Medford, Oregon. Wednesday, June 21st, Seven Cedars Casino in Sequim, Washington. Sequim, weirdest name for a town. Friday, June 23rd, I will be headlining at 7 Nightclub in Bend, Oregon. And Saturday, June 24th, I'll be headlining at Mobster Mike's in Bremerton, Washington. So all those dates, if you just go to underthecrossbones.com and click on the tour dates button, that'll show you when I am coming to tell jokes and sing songs in a town near you. Okay, so let's get to this interview with Geoff Zanelli. So we recorded this a couple of weeks ago. Disney wouldn't let me put it out until the movie was coming out. So as you'll hear us talking about in there, I haven't seen the movie yet. He's seen the movie, of course, probably lots and lots of times. But we will dig deep into the score and the films and how he got in with Hans Zimmer and just all sorts of film scoring stuff and his background in Southern California, and just really fun interview. And again, you can find him at geoffzanelli.com. at Geoff Zanelli on Twitter. And like I said, when we get about 30 minutes into it, you're going to hear me start to wrap it up, because that's when his PR rep told me to start wrapping it up. And he'll go, no, let's talk more. So we go on for another 10 or 15 minutes after that with more cool stuff, and that'll be great. Make sure to listen after the interview. I'm going to have some other things to tell you about linked up in the show notes that we talk about during the interview that I think you're really going to dig. So keep listening after that, and we'll put it all together. All right, here's my interview with Geoff Zanelli. Enjoy. So this is your first crack at a full franchise score and a first full Pirates of the Caribbean score. I know the filmmakers have said they kind of wanted to go back to that first Pirates of the Caribbean movie to kind of capture some of that feel after the 4th episode. And how much leeway did you have to make your own mark versus we have to capture the feel of a Pirates of the Caribbean film?
Right. Well, that was definitely the goal, was to get back to like what made pirates, right? That was such a surprise for everyone. But they had a lot of new characters, a lot of new concepts. So there's Karina, who's she's a scientist and everything. So that has and she has a huge story in this movie. So there's a lot to play with musically, and no music yet for it. You know what I mean? There's nothing that we could apply from the first 4 movies. And the same with Salazar, who's just like, he's an awesome bad guy. I mean, you can tell from the trailers, it's just an extraordinary performance.
Yeah.
But on top of that, he's also a different type of bad guy. Like with Davy Jones, there was like, he was almost operatic or romantic bad guy. And when Barbossa was a bad guy, it was very like sort of like a proper actor in a classic pirate bad guy kind of mode. Javier Bardem is like, he's just straight up vengeful, and that's it. Like, that's his thing, and you get his backstory and why he became that way, and that's what gives him depth. But by the time, we get to the present day of this 5th movie, he's like out for blood, right? So that's kind of a different type of bad guy than what we've had. I mean, we've had plenty of great bad guys, but Javier is just like, I mean, it's as good as it gets, and he's as bad as you can be. So those Karina and Salazar gave me like these two like giant blank canvases on which to, you know, kind of bring the Zanelli to Pirates.
Okay.
But the thing that I think people, you know, a lot of people kind of know this already, but because I worked on the first 4 Pirates as well,
right,
there's my DNA already in there, you know, and so
sure.
I don't think that's a secret or something. Like, I was credited and everything. Everybody knows that I played a big role, and so, you know, some of the things that you've already heard it's got a little bit of Geoff DNA anyways. So it's, I think in some ways, you know, people are going to hear it and they're going to go, hey, you know, we're still in the world of Pirates. There's some new themes, but it's it feels like an evolution of the pirate score, the same way that, say, the, you know, Star Wars has evolved over time or something. It's not like it's radically different in tone. It's just we're now expanding and adding to the sort of, you know, the body of Pirates music.
Got it. And I'm sure having those new characters was just sort of a godsend because it did give you a blank canvas.
Absolutely. And of course we still have Jack, and we're not going to abandon like what made that music for him always worked, and it was iconic, and Will Turner's in the movie, and, you know, so we do have sometimes new approaches to those themes or new versions of it. But like, look, I've spent I tell people I've spent more time working on Pirates movies than I spent like in high school. So all of that stuff is already, you know, it's in my blood, it's in my fingers, it's in my brain, and you know, it's all themes that I've worked with already.
Right.
So it was sort of like, you know, like an old hat or something. Like, it felt very comfortable to go back into that world, and especially exciting to have the new stuff. You know, if you get out like a protractor and measure the score, I think you'd find it's about 2/3 brand new material, and another third were in some version of an homage to the first 4. So I think that's actually pretty successful for a franchise that's kind of doing. I mean, let's call it a soft reboot. It's not really a reboot. It's just, you know, we're going to a new place, and it's exciting. Certainly.
Yeah. That sounds great. And I probably should mention for the listener that we're talking before the movie has come out. And so I haven't heard the score or anything yet or seen the movie, but I'm of course, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the film because the trailers have been great. And I do keep expecting Javier Bardem to lift like a large shotgun of some sort.
I keep expecting him to crawl out of my television and punch me, which is like exciting. Like isn't that like, that's what all the rock bands I used to listen to when I was a teenager made me feel too. And that's actually what I loved about it. Like, wasn't Guns N' Roses going to climb right out of MTV? And
right. No. So yeah, okay. So now that we're on that subject, let's dig back a bit, because you and I are about the same age, and you grew up in Southern California. So I mean, did you start playing, you know, by playing AC/DC covers and rock bands and such?
I grew up in Orange County, so that means I had a ska band.
Okay, all right, yep.
We were not a good one, but I was at least in one, and that, you know, and it was right at the sort of beginning of like the SoCal punk thing. Okay. You know, it was blowing up, and I guess the local hero would have been No Doubt when they were about to blow up. And the thing is, Orange County is quite far removed from Los Angeles in a way. It's true. You know, out here we say it's behind the orange curtain, and we're being sort of giggly about that, but it is a totally different world. And I'll tell you, in my childhood, I probably set foot in Los Angeles, no joke, maybe 3 times before I was 18.
Really? Okay.
So, I mean, it's 40 miles, but it might as well be 5,000. Like, I'd been to Boston more than Los Angeles. So, you know, it really is like a different world. But yeah, I did. I grew up in California out here, and, you know, I certainly listened to all that stuff. I was a rock guy when I was young, but I also had broader, you know, tastes. I mean, like, I think it's different now, but when you and I were boys, when we were in high school, you know, it was like your identity was what you listened to. And so, like, there were the rock guys and there were the pop guys, and, like, they didn't mix. But I somehow managed to permit myself or gain permission socially to listen to whatever I wanted to. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I was the rock guy who also carried a flute and played in the orchestra. So
see,
I identify.
Right. Yeah. So you had to do this. You have to do the same thing, and you get licensed to do it when you're a musician. But all those other kids that weren't, you know, it was like, I mean, it was, people would fight over it. It was so silly. And nowadays, I think people are more inclusive. And even, like, all the rock musicians are playing with the pop guys, and all the pop guys are doing hip-hop stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's like what's exciting in music is all of the kind of cross-pollination.
Sure.
And I think I'll call that progress in a big way, because it's just so silly that music would ever be like a wall instead of a bridge.
Right, absolutely. So then how do you, were you always a movie guy? Were you the kid that watched all the way to the end of the credits to hear the score?
Well, yes and no. Yes, definitely, but I didn't watch the credits to watch the credits. I watched them just to hear the score. Right, so what actually happens is, by the time I sort of got serious about writing film music, I was not really a scholar of who wrote what, but I was definitely, in tune with what I was responding to and what I liked. And, and I grew up on fantasy movies, and so my present day movies would have been Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and that's a pretty common one to hear. But Clash of the Titans, which was in the past,
yes.
when I was a kid, was like the thing, and so and I ate that up in Beastmaster and Conan, and it's what I did on a Saturday afternoon, because they would end up on TV by then, and so it was cool, and that was, I guess, what made it kind of get into my blood, I guess, to go and do these things. I also I have a particular memory of watching Willy Wonka, the first one. The second one hadn't been made yet. And that was like, in retrospect, that was the moment when I realized that somebody somewhere has to make specific music for a specific movie. Like, like when you're 5, that doesn't really register.
Sure.
But at some point I went, wait a sec, that's like, that music doesn't exist anywhere else and wouldn't exist if it weren't for that movie. And I like, looking back on it, that for me is what kind of was the tipping point, I guess, to go like, okay. And then on top of that, like when I was in high school and I had my dodgy little band, we, let me tell you how bad we were. One time we played at a party and some people asked us to stop playing so they could put the radio on. Okay, so I'm not trying to talk up like I had some band, but any dreams that I really had of being a rock star were that really wasn't the thing, because I thought, like, even if it goes really, really well, and you got to get up there and you're playing your hits for 30 years and you might be stuck on that same old song, or, you can kind of get boxed in a way.
Right. And
what's happening with film music is there's innovation all the time. And on top of that, a composer gets to write a piece of music or a score for, say, Pirates, and immediately after that I went into like a human trafficking thriller, right? And then I'm doing a sci-fi video game at the same time now. So my, I guess, hat changes all the time. I get to do a totally different thing, 4, 5, or 10 times in a year, and that keeps it fresh and interesting for me, instead of, feeling like, well, now I'm, it's an interesting thing because you can sort of regret your success if you're in a band, I think.
Oh yeah, free bird. Yeah,
exactly, right. And listen, I want to hear that song too if I go to that show. So I'm just as guilty of it, but it's a really interesting thing, and I think that one way around it, or one way to sort of keep yourself always exercising a new muscle, is to go into film, where you get to, you really get to shift around a lot. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, did you make like a hard break? Did you say, okay, I'm done with the rock thing, going to...
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, you're a Berklee guy, right?
I am a Berklee guy. Yes, and really what happened was I was pretty late to the music game. I didn't have a guitar until the first day of my sophomore year of high school, which means by the time I went to college, I was a 3-year-old musician, right?
Okay.
In a sea of 15-year-old musicians.
Yeah, right.
Which is terrifying. But I went to Berklee thinking already I want to go into the film music program, and they also have a great engineering and production program, and so I combined them, which was a little bit of luck, but maybe a little bit of me sensing, that those skills would be complementary for each other. And they've certainly both served me very well.
Sure, yeah.
So, I guess by the time I went off to Berklee, I knew I wasn't going to want to go on tour and, try to be in a band. So I already had that as a goal. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really try to form a band in Boston either. It wasn't quite the thing I wanted to do. I would rather be writing. And actually, even before I went to Berklee, I was finding, when you can write a song and it's got a shape and it's got a form, and, you can play with it a little bit, but you can't really write an 11-minute song unless
Right.
it's 70s and you're in Yes or something. And, which were the other records that I loved. You know what I mean? When I was in high school and everyone thought I was crazy. What's that stuff, man? But for me, it was, I think the appeal was that it was doing something a little bit different from chorus, verse, chorus, middle eight, verse, chorus. And so that was, I guess, me finding a way of trying to be a little bit more expansive about what I was writing.
Right.
So I went to Berklee with the idea that I'd be writing, and that really is what I was doing. And so I'd get the pieces performed in college by, the local musicians and whoever I could, beg, borrow, and steal from.
Sure, yeah. Now, I mean, back then, so what year are we talking? So
I went off to college in 1992.
Oh, of course. I should have been able to do that math. Yeah.
That's no problem.
I was like, when did I go to college? Right. Okay. Yeah. So now, I mean, back then, writing a large scale piece, like a film score type of piece, was a much more difficult process because we didn't have a bunch of East-West virtual instruments and Happy Sibelius to work on. Were you banging it out with basic MIDI and? Yeah,
I was, and I could. I mean, I think it was already late enough that we were abandoning like pencil and paper, although I occasionally go there. But I'm really not that guy. But the MIDI thing was taking off, and I actually sort of in those 4 years that I was there, it was really taking off. And what ended up happening is, I guess about halfway through my college time, I flew out to L.A. and sort of begged anyone out here that had a studio that was doing anything in film music for an internship, and we'll work for free. I just want to be around it.
Right.
And I sent out maybe 50 or 60 resumes thinking I'd get 20 or 30 phone calls, but I actually got one. And it was very, very tentative, why don't you show up Monday and we'll see if it's a match. And so I put on a nice shirt and hoped, and I went there, and it was actually Hans Zimmer's studio, and he's writing The Lion King that summer, right?
Ah, okay.
So I'm still living in Orange County. I was at my folks' house, but I drive all the way up and sort of pour coffee and get lunch and clean toilets just so I could be in a studio. And that was really the first time I ever set foot in a studio, believe it or not. I was, I guess, 19 or something like that. And then I just sort of stopped going home. The shift would be over, and I'd be like, yeah, but I'm just going to sit in the back of the mix room if you let me.
Yeah.
And I would befriended Alan Meyerson, was the engineer then, and in fact even mixed Pirates 5 just now. So we have a long friendship, and
nice.
Of course Hans and I do too. And if you look at it from that sense, that means I've been at that studio for 23 years. I still have a writing room in there. So
nice. The years fly by, don't they?
Yeah, that went fast. Yeah.
So you have worked with Hans Zimmer for a long time, and I saw a quote from you that says you said specifically with these pirate films, he really changed the sound of the pirate film genre. How do you think that is, and how did you kind of tap into that?
Well, so I think from day one on the first Pirates, which really went like this. I got a phone call from Hans on a Saturday morning. You got to come in and look at this movie. We got to write fast and put a team together. And I came and we looked at it, and then he played us this very, very early demo, which was a suite of basically all the themes, or nearly all the themes that you hear in Pirates 1. And it was like, look, don't think of this as an orchestra. Think of this as your rock band. It just happens to be they're playing cellos and violins.
Okay,
right?
Interesting.
So it was a rock perspective on that, and I think it's not unprecedented. Hans had sort of started pioneering some of that with his like Backdraft, for instance, or
sure.
Sometimes I get my timeline mixed up, but I'm almost positive Crimson Tide was well before. But yeah, it must have been. Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah.
And these scores, which were it was just a new and at the time unorthodox sound, and I think that was what made it sort of interesting. It was like it's sort of like AC/DC on an orchestra. It's all very like the whole orchestra is focused on one riff. It's not like complicated orchestral music. It's instead complicated production technique with a very like a pure, simple, easy, almost deconstructed melody. You know what I mean? Like it's like you can hum the tune for Pirates and you get it instantly. Somebody's humming Pirates, right?
Right.
And that, like in the same exact way that an AC/DC guitar riff, just because you brought him up, it does that thing, right away. Those are the notes of the riff, right? And so it's very, very strong and powerful, and it works great in the cinema because you've got it's on a big movie like this, you're playing an arena, you're not playing in a club.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you got to have things that'll resonate across like a big amount of space. when you're in a club, you can get a whole lot more complicated. I mean, I'm just saying because you have a band and you play live, right?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So you know what I'm saying. Like if you have 40,000 people in your audience, then things have to be tailored a certain way so you can reach the guy in the back.
Right.
And if you've got 200 people in a club, you can reach that guy a lot easier.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, so when you're doing – so Pirates was very much like that. It's like this is a big spectacle movie, and it's just think rock and roll, and I think that's probably why I was able to get the style right away and be so – involved, I guess, or helpful or something, because I wasn't not at all trying to be, conventional with the orchestra.
Right.
And by the way, if you go through my, my catalog, you can find examples of me being very conventional with the orchestra, like say the Pacific or something.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't that I couldn't. It was a conscious choice on all of our parts to go like, this is how we're going to make this thing like be Pirates. It's what makes it iconic.
That makes sense, and I think it also works on almost a little bit of a subliminal level where the Jack Sparrow character is, it's got that Keith Richards-ness about it, where it is a very rock star kind of character. Absolutely,
right. And the only other, sort of thing that expands on it is when we do like Drunk Jack, which is another thing, which that's like the Johnny when he talks about Pepe Le Pew or something.
Right.
He says, I'm Keith Richards with a little bit of Pepe Le Pew, I've heard him say. And that's perfect. And so, and once you get into the sort of over-romantic version of Jack, you get into that's where like that solo cello that you probably recognize from first, and actually all the movies have it. And that's Martin Tillman's amazing performance of a piece of music that, is just connected with a character. And it's a strong, like at some point we realized probably around the second, maybe the third movie, we're actually working on like Star Wars right now. It's like, this has become the thing. And,
right.
Which is quite a cool thing to notice when you're into movie 3 of something which you thought was only ever going to be 1,
Certainly. Yeah. And the other people that I've talked to who are involved with the film, Jim Burkett and Leanne Berg and guys like that, and nobody knew it was going to be that thing.
No, nobody.
I think right before that had been the Haunted Mansion movie, which was a giant mistake. And
Haunted Mansion was after. Wasn't it? There was another one though. I think Haunted Mansion came after us. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I do think everyone was going. First off, it's a pirate movie,
right?
Which it had been 20 years or something since since someone had really pulled that off, and probably even more than that now that I think of it. And then it's built. You're making a pirate movie, and it's a ride at an amusement park, and it was very confusing. People. And then I even remember seeing the teaser in theaters before I was working on it.
Oh, neat.
And going, wow, that looks awesome. It was the skeleton walking across the the bottom of the sea, and It was just a little tiny teaser, and I thought, man, I want to see that now. And I think it's unquestionably because of what Gore Verbinski did with the material, but on top of that, phenomenal casting, top to bottom.
Sure.
Every single element of it was perfect, and it kind of made it easy in a way to score it, because the music wasn't trying to solve any problems. You know what I mean? Like it was all just there to be like the movie was working already before we touched it. So all we could do was just make it better and better. And everybody thought this is a really risky movie because I think we all knew it was good, but nobody knew if it was going to catch. Right.
Right.
I don't think even Disney knew. I mean, certainly they hoped. You always hope, but. I don't know. I feel like we might not have even really quite realized it after the first weekend, because I think, typically a movie comes out and you kind of figure a little less than triple of your opening weekend is about how a movie will sustain these days,
sure.
Right? And that's success. But this movie, if I remember right, it was something like 6 times its opening weekend because it just lingered. Like people didn't want to let go of it. They were going back 4 times, and because it was so. It was brilliant, and Johnny Depp and Gore, and it just the whole thing clicked from top to bottom. So then, of course, it was like, well, we got to make 2 and 3. They were going to film them together, even, and became like, all right, we're going somewhere.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
It was totally a thing. It was great.
So now, on those first 4 movies, you're generally credited with additional material. So
That's
what is that part? Is that we need a string tremolo right here? Go write that, Geoff.
No,
or is it?
It's a little more involved now. So I guess just briefly on the very first one, this sort of, I think if you do a little internet sleuthing, you can actually find the demo that Hans did that has like most of the themes in it. He put it up on an interview a few years ago, and you can hear just like literally like him bashing at a keyboard, this very rough version of the themes, but it's obvious already what it's going to become, right?
Okay.
So, for instance, in the first one, at the end of the movie in the credits, it's called He's a Pirate. It's like the main Pirates theme.
Right.
What happened there was I just took that strings demo that Hans had sort of bashed in and turned it into that piece of music. So you'd be able to sort of A-B those two and see what my role was in taking it from point A to point B, I guess. Then there was, other stuff. I'm trying to remember. There was, we called it the ship-to-ship chase. It's in the first movie. Pretty long sequence as the two ships are chasing. Anyway, forgive me. It's about 2/3 of the way through the movie.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Okay, cool. And so there I had taken actually that same melody of He's a Pirate, but it wasn't. It's not something you could just stick it in there and have it work.
Sure.
So I went in and I, from the ground up, wrote this. It's about 7-minute action sequence, and some of that became part of the sound of Pirates, the one that people recognize. In fact, it gave me my nickname, Broadside, because it's right when the ships go next to each other. I don't know if you noticed, all the composers and musicians have pirate names on the album credits. So
nice.
Broadside Zanelli, because of that cue. And I think I probably had my hand in about maybe 25 minutes of that score, and there were a lot of us on that movie, so that was a pretty big role. And then on the second one, we started off. I think I spent the early part of the writing process doing the Cannibal Island music, and that I actually wrote.
Okay.
So that when you first fly into Cannibal Island, that's my piece of music, and then within there you'll hear Jack's theme and stuff like that, which would be me doing an arrangement of that theme. Then also on the second one, I wrote a tune for Teodalma, who, if you remember the movies, in the third movie, it's revealed she's Calypso and she becomes, an 80-foot monstrous woman and all that. And so I wrote, it was really not even a long piece of music. It's just as they're going into her swamp and there's this little theme and it plays and it's spooky. And then movie 3 shows up and we've got this giant Calypso moment. And I thought, oh, great, here we go. So now we already have a tune and I happen to write it. And then I went and, made that into... kind of becomes one of many set pieces in Pirates 3, but when she grows and blows up. So that was me. And then in the fourth one, I wrote the theme for the Spanish, the Spanish army, so I think it plays right at the beginning of the movie, and it plays when they show up, at the Fountain of Youth and all that.
Okay.
And then the other stuff I did on that, which was really fun, was working with Rodrigo and Gabriela, who came and played guitars on Pirates 4. This is on Stranger Tides.
They are so good. I love them.
Oh, it was and such good energy, so much fun, and we were finding new ways of taking those old tunes and oh, by the way, I should also say it became tradition for me to do the version of the end credits. So when you hear He's a Pirate, which was a Pirates 1 through 4 guarantee that as soon as it goes cut to black, you hear that main Pirates theme, and then it would segue into one of the main themes from the movie.
Sure.
And so I would do the arrangement and put that all together, and that was also awesome because, it's like a music. There's no sound effects in the way.
Right.
You get to hear it, and so that's something that it became like one of my duties, and it was almost comedy that it was like, who's going to do the end credits? Guess who's going to do the end credits? And then we'd get into it, and it just became like. I guess it's funny because once I knew I was doing Pirates 5, it was, I think, surprisingly not intimidating. You know what I mean? Like it had every right to be intimidating and terrifying. And there's some element of that, but at the same time, it's like, man, if anyone can do this, because I know this world and that it wasn't like that we're trying to go to some, we're not doing an all synthesizer score or a string quartet or something crazy. We're going, it's got to live in this world, and we just have to expand on that sort of on that music. So
definitely, yeah, no, it was a good choice. I imagine that's some of your music that we're hearing in the trailers outside of the Johnny Cash tune.
No, actually, it's not. What they're. I know, it's funny, right? Because sometimes we try to do it, but I think what happens is like the world of trailer music is so very specific they tend to do is they get like trailer writers, but they are using Pirates music, so you hear it in there. But they're it's someone else's version of it and tailored for for the marketing angle or however you want to look at it.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Oh, no, that makes sense. No.
I think it was about a month ago, that trailer that came out. Oh, they had it in the Super Bowl spot, actually. That they had a version of He's a Pirate, actually, that I thought was just really cool. Like, just sort of deconstructed and interesting. It was cool.
Nice. That's fantastic. So I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to take too much time of your time here. What's a good place for people to keep up with what you're doing online?
Oh, well, so there's just plain old geoffzanelli.com, but that's with the G, though, so Geoff Zanelli. Okay, and then also at Geoff Zanelli is my Twitter,
okay,
and I have a Facebook, which is you'd be able to find it if you put my name in there, and those are the main spots where I stay active, and I try to talk to people about what it is that I'm up to. So. Great.
Fantastic, man. I am so glad we got a chance to do this.
Me too, man. Is anything else you want to go into before we wrap it up? Or, I mean, like, man, I like that there's people out there carrying on the Pirates thing.
Oh, see, and this is something I have to tell all the Pirates of the Caribbean people that I do talk to is that the pirate fandom community was at not a low point, but it was just not as well known before that first movie came out. And these movies have really not only generated just a huge fan base, but I have talked to dozens and dozens of people that have changed their entire lives to go into this pirate thing. They've created businesses, they've created art, they've created all sorts of amazing stuff because these movies came out. And of course, there are a lot of people who are super traditionalists and think Jack Sparrow is an atrocity. But
I disagree. But no, listen, I think that's what I think is so cool is you would know those guys better than I would, the men and women who come and hang out and do this, but I just think it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, there's the reason we go to movies is because we want to have these adventures and these kind of extraordinary lives, right?
Right.
And so, just that people get so involved in it, I just think it's awesome because obviously the pirate community isn't just the Pirates of the Caribbean community. It's people that are finding, all sorts of ways to kind of express their an interest in something that's above and beyond themselves, and that's a beautiful thing no matter how you look at it. So
yeah, and one of the most common origin stories that I hear from people is I saw Pirates of the Caribbean and I was like, I want to be a pirate, man.
See, and that's cool, and like I'm a Disneyland junkie. I like to just go there,
yeah,
and especially now I'm raising a family and all, and so when I go there, it's like it's just absolute magic, and you see people that are just so in tune with it, and just I guess I want to say like enamored with the imaginativeness of it, right? I don't even know if that's a word, imagine. But,
it is now.
I think as soon as you realize that, your imagination, as soon as you realize your imagination is like as important as reality, then you're in a kind of a special place. You know what I mean? And there's, I don't know, people fall in love with it because it allows them to have a different kind of life. It makes them feel happier, and just any type of imagination and creativity, whether it's in pirates or in writing a new app or creating a new, fragrance, it's all things that can make the world more interesting. And sometimes it can make the world just plain old better if you figure out medicine or something.
Sure, yeah.
So all I mean is like it's a way that people tap into their creativity, and I just love that. So anyway,
that's great. Yeah, you bet. So, I mean, so you are the part of the Orange County contingent that actually likes Disney and not the Tragic Kingdom, no doubt, other half of Orange County.
I was not that part of Orange County, no. But there was some amount of that. But it's actually funny. I probably go to Disneyland more now that I live in LA than I did when I was a kid. But that has, a little more to do with having income.
Yeah, certainly. I know. I'm going in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Just for the record, I was not the part of Orange County that lives in the giant mansions. I was part of landlocked Westminster with graffiti and metal detectors in the high school. So,
right.
It was a slightly different Orange County than the one they show you on television.
That's true. Now, I mean, as a kid, when you did go on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride and you're listening to that Existencio theme song, did you ever go, man, I'd like to write some of that?
Well, I bought the album, and I was the only people that would, and I had that and Haunted Mansion, and and I would listen to. I mean, I'd listen to that stuff for pleasure listening, right? And I don't really know that many people that did that as a teenager. Most people did it as a nostalgia thing,
right?
But I did it as a, in what was then my sort of present day. So I guess that's a little bit unusual, right? And yeah, I think I did think it would be pretty awesome if I wrote that song, and it was sort of not lost on me how lucky and sort of blessed I am that I get to actually do this Pirates thing, right?
Right.
I'm happy to do them and to be on all of them. And I mean it when I was saying, like, we realized all of a sudden we're making the new Star Wars. Although this is when they weren't actually making the new Star Wars. Now Star Wars is the new Star Wars. But I mean, like, as soon as we realized, and we're actually making a trilogy, and people are showing up, and they love this thing, and and it's a cultural phenomenon, and we sort of became part of the zeitgeist, which is pretty uncommon actually for a film composer, right?
Certainly,
we get our moments, but it's not. There's no guarantees. So it was really exciting when you kind of know it's clicking and it's working.
Certainly, yeah. So what are you working on now? What's coming up next?
Okay, well, a couple things that I'm not allowed to talk about. I know it's true. But I did do a human trafficking thriller. It's called Stranded. May go through a title change to Traffic. So we'll see. Okay. And I'm also working on a huge video game that a friend of mine is making called Star Citizen, which is I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's a crowd-funded video game, but they've raised now, I believe, $150 million in crowdfunding.
Wow.
Making it, as far as I know, like the biggest crowdfunding success story like ever.
Yeah.
But it's a video game by the guy who made Wing Commander, Chris Roberts. And if you grew up in that era and played games, you might have seen those. They were everywhere. There was maybe 5 of them.
Sure.
And they were brilliant. And anyway, so he became a friend of mine because he made a movie a few years ago, another fantasy movie actually. It's called Outlander.
Oh yeah.
And I wrote the music for him for that. And then once he got into Star Citizen, I said, of course I'm going to help you on this. This is just cool. So that's what's on at the moment that I'm allowed to talk about.
Nice. And you're no stranger to video games. You did one of the Call of Duty games too, if I remember right.
Yes, but that was actually they always did a version of it for the handhelds. So the other ones would come out on the big consoles. But yes, I did do that, and I worked on one of the Shrek games, and I worked on an EverQuest title some time ago. There might have been one other, but yeah, this one, I think with Star Citizen though, we have a lot more, I guess, like ability with the game engine to do more and amazing things with the music.
Uh-huh.
So what we're doing with them is actually working on like a system. See, I'm not a coder, but they are, right? And they can take it. The idea is that the game will sort of approach the same types of scoring decisions that I would make if I were scoring a scene. Okay. But of course, in a video game, you never know when somebody's going to make a certain move or push that button or go through that door.
Right.
So the music has to know how to shift and why to shift and when to shift and to what to shift to. And, so I'm building these very long pieces of music that are modular so that the engine can make a decision about how to score your experience. And that'll be like throughout the whole title. And I mean, it's actually already starting to work. The game is, getting built still, of course, but we're starting to see like real fruits of that. And I think it's on a level that hasn't ever been attempted before. Like, people have certainly done this, but it's working so seamlessly, and it's pretty exciting. That's what I like about it, because like the music is its own thing, and I know how to write that. But what's exciting is that we're now able to apply it in a game scenario that I think is, it could become an industry standard kind of way of doing things, because it's compelling and it really does make the experience better. So
nice. Yeah. And that's definitely a new composing challenge with the video games like that, because you just don't know where it's going to. The one thing it kind of reminds me of, and I've done a little bit of scoring in my career, but the first thing I did was for a short film. And the guy said, I need you to score my short film. I said, great, let me see it. And he said, I haven't filmed it yet. And I said, how do you expect me to write the music if I can't see the film? And he goes, I don't know. That's your job. And I was like, oh, all right. So I gave him like this very loop-based modular kind of score. It's like 7-minute score. And there was like one one sync hit that he had to hit. It was like a Hitchcockian kind of short. And I said, there's one part in here, one part you really have to sync this part up because that's your big climax right there. And he missed it. He totally missed it. So,
oh no!
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what though, because I knew, just back to Pirates for a second, I knew for about a year and a half, maybe a year, before they filmed it, that I was going to be scoring it. And they had sort of let me read the script and get all this stuff going. And so what I had done actually is written a bunch of music, but that said, then of course I, had the time to go into the film and sort of, make it work there. But by the time they were ready to sit down and really talk to me, they'd had an assembly of the movie. I had maybe 20 minutes or so that I could just play for them. They sit down, and Jerry and Joachim and Espen, who are the directors, and Jerry Bruckheimer and Mitchell Lieb from Disney all came over, and the editors, and we had a big kind of kickoff meeting, and I played for them the themes that I had written. And in fact, one of them, Karina's theme, is in the movie as originally written in part of the end credits now. So in that,
nice.
In the thing. So that was, it was a, sort of a home run, but it was also really beneficial to have, like, I'm responding now just to the script. So I'm looking at the core of the story and the things that are just the words of it, right? And then once you get the actual images, things certainly change, but it was interesting to have the music informed by, the same thing that the images were informed by. Do you know what I mean? Instead of responding to the picture, I'm responding to the actual story, to what the writers, and Jeff Nathanson wrote it, and it's brilliant. And
interesting.
Yeah, it was a cool way to work, and you don't always get that luxury because so often as a composer, I know 10 weeks before we're about to record the score that I have the job. So, but this one I knew, whatever that is, 70 weeks or something.
Right. So, I mean, when you are generally when you've got that sort of 10-week lead time, you're looking at a much more finished film than anybody else is looking at on the crew. Have you ever signed the contract and then looked at the film and went, oh boy, this is not going to be good?
No, but look, luckily I'm easily inspired.
Okay.
But no, I haven't ever really had that. I can't say that I've had that, but I have had the opposite, where I've been really pleasantly surprised, and like Disturbia as an example. Actually, I read the script and it read to me basically as a thriller.
Sure.
And then when I sat down with DJ Caruso to talk initially about it, I said, look, you have a love story in here too, and I think it's going to be secondary to the thriller story, but let's make it, instead of going with like a big orchestral love theme, these are teenagers, let's make it feel more like it's a song, right? Let's get a band together and we'll, do an instrumental kind of version of a song that feels present and now. And then when I watched the movie, it wasn't just like some little side story in the picture. To me, it was what actually made that movie work was that the thriller aspects and the love story were of equal, weight. And it suddenly made the movie into a totally different thing. And in fact, we got a band to take the piece of music that I wrote and write lyrics and perform a song out of it, which is in the movie. So that was like a cool kind of symbiotic way to get everything going. And it makes the music link up, because they could have kissed to whatever the big pop song was in 2007 and it would have been just fine, but instead we got a song that's actually written out of the love theme from the movie, which is, and I'm saying love theme in quotes. I mean, it makes it sound really pretentious, like there's me being pretentious. It's just, a piece of music for them, but all of a sudden it works so much better and feels more genuine when you do it that way. So, and that was something we were able to do kind of because I got involved early. Or another example, actually, almost the opposite thing happening, which was in The Odd Life of Timothy Green. I wrote a piece of music, which is like, it's also about, I think they're 10 and 11-year-old boy and girl, and they're on a bike ride, and it's romantic, and it has to be treated like, it's a real relationship, but they're at the same time they're 10 and 11.
Right, yeah.
So it's an innocent but true and meaningful, genuine affection for each other. And they're riding their bike, and I wrote this piece of music, and the director actually watched it and said, look, I love that music so much, I don't think my scene's living up to it. And he calls up Disney and he says, I want to shoot some additional photography.
Wow. And
he gets them to clear it. And he actually added to the sequence, some bigger shots and some just kind of things that, it just made it so beautiful. And that's another way of like music being super powerful in a film. It actually changed the film, literally the film. So that was, another way to work. And in this case, though, look, we have we knew what Jack's theme was going to be, although we get to do, like, you can tell from the trailers and you'll see that we get to do his origin story.
Sure.
So I actually got to go back and, like, go through a moment when in Jack's life when he kind of becomes Jack Sparrow.
Okay.
So he earns his theme, like, in this movie. And it's really cool to kind of see it get applied that way. And that was a really fun sequence to work on, too, because all of a sudden it becomes, like, I still get tingles because I'm still a fan of pirates, but it's like, you know, he actually becomes Jack. There he is, and you can see in the trailers him as a boy, right? You've seen him as a 12-year-old now. So, you know, there's all sorts of ways that this stuff can get written, and some particular ways that the music can be made even stronger. And that's one of the things about it is, like, if you get a year and a half to sit around and think about it and worry a little and plan a little, and you know, it makes a huge difference. So,
well, that's fantastic, man. We are all definitely looking forward to see it, and hopefully everything goes well so that you can have another job on Pirates 6.
I hope so, man. I hope they keep making it. It's just, you know, it's so great to look up and see Jack Sparrow on your screen.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm not going to get tired of that. so all good.
Super, Geoff. This has been fun, man. I really appreciate your time, and I know everybody's going to dig this interview a whole bunch.
Cool, man. Thanks for your time, too. I appreciate the interest.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
And there it is, friends. That is my interview with Geoff Zanelli. Again, you can find him at geoffzanelli.com or at Geoff Zanelli on Twitter. And Geoff is spelled Geoff, Zanelli, Zanelli. Was that not fun? Man, that dude is into his work, and I just love his exuberance and his just energy for the whole thing. Now, here's what we're going to do. We talked about those demos. Demos? That's not a word. We talked about those demos of the Pirates of the Caribbean themes that Hans Zimmer put out. It was his scratch demos of the early themes for the thing. So I dug those up. I found them, and I will put them in the show notes at underthecrossbones.com/092 so that you can hear those early demos, and they're pretty cool. You hear it's all in there, man. I will also link up some Rodrigo y Gabriela, because if you've not heard them before, they are super awesome. And I know they did some work on the fourth film with Geoff there. So I'll link up that too, because you should hear that. They're a really great duo. Just fantastic guitar work. I'm a guitarist. I love great guitar work. They're amazing. Under the Crossbones today is sponsored by Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast, WKKC-DB, playing the best music and pirate radio talk. You can listen to Under the Crossbones on both their stations. Just go to pirateradioofthetreasurecoast.com or pirateradiotc.com. And don't forget to download the apps, Pirate Radio Treasure Coast, which is their music station, and Pirate Radio Talk, which is the talk station. If you're enjoying the show, and I hope you are, if you're new, if you've been here for a while, welcome, stay, love you, you're great. Join us over on Facebook, facebook.com/underthecrossbones, where we're doing all sorts of things. On Twitter, we're at Under Crossbones. No the in that one, too long for Twitter. And make sure that you're subscribed if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, which is iTunes. They changed the name to Apple Podcasts now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or whatever your chosen method of getting podcasts is, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you can get all the new episodes downloaded to your device automatically every Tuesday. Normally the show comes out on Tuesday. This week it came out on Friday to accommodate the Pirates of the Caribbean release schedule. But you'll get a new show next Tuesday, and I got a good one for you, too. Oh, it's going to be a good one. Yeah, we got the singer from Ailstorm on next week. Oh, very exciting. All right. If you're not familiar, go look up Ailstorm, the band, and they're wonderful. And again, all those show notes will be at underthecrossbones.com/092. If you want to help support the show, that would be awesome. Go to underthecrossbones.com/support. Little PayPal box there. You can drop a donation in there, anything you feel is appropriate. There's an Amazon banner. Click that Amazon banner. Go to Amazon, buy yourself something nice. Like I just bought myself a nice little cooling fan for my laptop that keeps overheating. Got it from Amazon. You can do that too. And when you buy something from Amazon, after clicking the banner on that page, Amazon kicks me back a few pennies, and that's helpful. I didn't get a few pennies back because I can't click my own banner. It's against the rules. Anyway, if you want to be a sponsor of the show, like Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast, it's very simple, very easy. Just go to underthecrossbones.com/support and contact me from there. We'll get you all hooked up. I have a free gift for you. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's an ebook. It is Pirates of Panama or Buccaneers of America by Alexander Exquemelin. Now, if you're not familiar, that is a book that was first published in 1678. Alexander Exquemelin was a medical professional and ended up on a pirate ship, wrote about his experiences in the right there midst of the golden age of piracy. It's a really great book and a very seminal pirate literature. Not literature, it's nonfiction. Or as far as we know. Listen to other shows, we'll talk about that. And it's very easy to get this book. It's under the two names, Pirates of Panama or Buccaneers of America. Just go to underthecrossbones.com, click on the free ebook link, and you can get it right there. Or if you're out and about and you want to text to get it, just text the word pirate and your email address to 94253. That's pirate, the word, and your email address to 94253. It'll kick you back a little link to download the book right to your phone from there. One last thing, if you have been to a cool pirate event recently, or seen a pirate band, or a cool pirate museum, or a tourist attraction of some sort, you've done something cool and piratey recently, I would like to hear about it and play your show, your trip report on the show. So here's how you do that. You're going to leave me a voicemail at this phone number, 408-599-2733. Again, that's 408-599-2733. Leave me a voicemail at that number. Tell me all about your cool pirate experience, trip, museum, band, whatever you did. And if it's a good story, I'll play it on the show. That'll be fun. And that's my Google Voice number. It's not like you're not calling my personal cell phone or home number or anything. I won't answer. Just leave a voicemail right there, and it'll all be great. Okay? All right, friends, that is our show for today. Thank you once again for tuning in. If you're new, thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll stay around. Again, you can find my guest, Geoff Zanelli, at geoffzanelli.com. Geoff, Geoff Zanelli, like it sounds, with two L's. And you can find him at Geoff Zanelli on Twitter. If you're going to see Pirates of the Caribbean tonight, I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to see it on Saturday, and we'll talk about it next week. Next week, I have the singer from Ailstorm on the show. It's going to be a good one. We've been trying a long time to get him, and so that's coming up. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.